All right, Pokemon just dropped a free game, free, $0, you pay nothing, and somehow the internet is more tilted than a guy who just lost his last tournament match to a hacks. Pokemon Champions launched yesterday, April 8th, 2026, a game that was supposed to be the competitive Pokemon experience, the Pokemon Stadium revival, the battle hub that hardcore players have been screaming into the void for. They said, play the way you want. They said this was the future of competitive Pokemon. They showed off trailers, all the sick stuff, mega evolutions, full rosters, hype battles, and then they shipped it with 186 Pokemon out of 1,025. Let that marinate. 18% of all existing Pokemon made the cut. Pokemon Stadium 2, a game from 25 years ago, back when there were only 251 Pokemon in existence, had more Pokemon than this brand new 2026 release. That's not a vibe, bro. That is a historical regression. Okay, let me actually explain what Pokemon Champions is supposed to be, because I think a lot of people saw free Pokemon game and lost their minds before reading anything. This is not a mainline Pokemon RPG. There's no story, no routes, no catching Pokemon in tall grass while your mom yells at you to do homework. None of that. This is purely a PvP battle simulator. Think Pokemon Stadium on the N64. You show up, you pick a team, you fight other people. That's the whole thing. And honestly, that pitch is great. The competitive scene has always had this massive barrier to entry where you needed to grind hundreds of hours in a mainline game just to get a viable team together. EVs, IVs, natures, breeding chains. It's basically a part-time job. A dedicated battle hub where you can just build your team and go fight. That's genius. That's exactly what the scene needed. The core battling, from what reviewers are saying, is actually solid. Tight mechanics, mega evolutions from across multiple generations all in one place. Genuinely good stuff. So they had the right idea, and then they executed it like they were shipping a game jam project. Let's talk about the 186 Pokemon situation, because this is the one that physically hurts me. The Pokemon Company's producer actually said, and I'm not making this up, we want to include as many Pokemon as possible. Brother, you included 18%. At what point in that meeting did someone go, yeah, 186 sounds like as many as possible, ship it? And it gets worse. The game only supports fully evolved Pokemon, which, okay, from a pure competitive standpoint, you kind of get it. Nobody's running a Magikarp in VGC, but the one exception they made, Pikachu, because of course, the mascot gets a hall pass. Every other baby Pokemon, nah, locked out. But Pikachu is sitting there in his little shorts like he owns the place. Now here's the part that made the competitive community genuinely furious, and these are the people who have been waiting for this game. Items are missing. Not like niche items nobody uses. We're talking Life Orb, Choice Band, Choice Specs, Assault Vest. These are like the holy trinity of competitive Pokemon items that have been in the game for over a decade, gone. Oh, but it gets even better. You know how they showed items in the overview trailer, multiple items on screen? In the actual promotional material for this game, those items are not in the game. They showed you items they didn't put in. That's not a missing feature. That's a trailer for a different product. That's advertising a burger and handing you a picture of a burger. Fake out. A move that's been in competitive Pokemon since the early 2000s is bugged. You can use it once and then you literally cannot select it again for the rest of the match. A move that's functioned correctly for decades, broken day one. Now let's talk about the technical side, because this is where it goes from embarrassing to genuinely baffling. Pokemon Champions runs at 30 frames per second on Switch 2. Someone on the internet said it perfectly, and I'm paraphrasing here, but if Cyberpunk 2077 works on Switch 2, why is this running at 30 FPS? And that's a completely fair question. Cyberpunk, the game that launched so broken on consoles in 2020 that Sony pulled it from the PlayStation Store, that game runs fine on a Switch 2. But a turn-based battle simulator, a game where characters stand across from each other and take turns pressing buttons, needs to chug along at 30 frames. And people aren't just mad about the frame rate. The menus are slow and clunky. The visuals are a downgrade from Scarlet and Violet. And let me say that again, a game specifically built around looking at Pokemon battle each other with no open world, no exploration, just battles, looks worse than Scarlet and Violet, a game people roasted for running bad on the old Switch. Somehow in 2026 on the Switch 2, they made Pokemon look worse than they did 3 years ago on weaker hardware. That is an achievement, a dark achievement, a reverse speedrun of graphical quality. There was also apparently a title update that dropped for Switch 2, and it helped a little, but players on base Switch, still rough, still choppy. Still the experience of watching a PowerPoint presentation fight another PowerPoint presentation. And this might be the most telling detail of everything. There are theories floating around that the PAX demo versions, the ones shown at events, were running on more powerful hardware than even what's in the Switch 2, meaning the version they showed you wasn't the version they shipped you, which is a whole other level of yikes. Here's what I think is the most damning thing about this whole situation. A player on Reset Era, someone who actually liked the game, said, and I quote, "This really feels like a beta test." That's the defense. The positive review is, "It feels like a beta." And honestly, that tracks, because the whole list of problems reads like a QA checklist that someone forgot to finish. Missing modes, no 6v6 single battles on day one, always online required with no local wireless, no private lobby options, no way to turn off timers in custom matches, a move bug for a move that's been in the game for 20 years, items shown in trailers that aren't in the game, performance issues on current gen hardware. This isn't me being harsh, this is the competitive community, the exact audience this game was built for, saying they feel let down on launch day. And here's the thing that gets me. They know the competitive players will stay, because what choice do they have? Pokemon Champions is now the official platform for competitive tournaments. The VGC players, the guys who have dedicated years to this game, are essentially forced to use Champions going forward for official play. So the people most invested, most passionate, most likely to push through the rough launch, they're locked in whether they like it or not. That is a very convenient situation for the Pokemon Company. The free Machamp mystery gift they dropped today to calm people down is the corporate equivalent of giving someone a Band-Aid after you accidentally ran them over with a car. Look, and I want to be fair here because there are some people making a reasonable point. Master Duel, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Digital card game, launched without half the card game in it. People played it anyway, it grew into something great. Pokemon Unite started rough, these live service games take time, and that's true, that is a real pattern. Sometimes games find their footing. But here's my problem with that argument being applied here. When Master Duel launched, the bar was low. Nobody expected Yu-Gi-Oh! To nail it out of the gate. But Pokemon is one of the biggest entertainment franchises on the planet. The Pokemon Company is not a scrappy indie studio scraping together a passion project. They have the budget, they have the time, they have the IP. They released this as the definitive Pokemon platform, and they dropped it in a state that has fewer Pokemon than a game from 2001. There's also the free-to-play model sitting quietly in the background of all of this. The game is built around quick coupons and a currency system that multiple reviewers have described as confusing and messy. You've got a game that's incomplete at launch, runs poorly, has missing advertised content, and is asking you to navigate a pile of currencies on top of it. The battle system might be great, the bones might be there, but the house built on those bones is currently on fire and they handed you a bucket with a hole in it. The competitive players who were most hyped, the ones who spent years wanting this exact product, are the ones most disappointed right now. And that should tell you everything. And here's where I land on this. Pokemon Champions could genuinely become something special. The core idea is right. The battling mechanics are solid. Mega evolutions from multiple generations in one place is actually sick. If they patch the bugs, add the missing Pokemon and items, fix the performance, and add basic features like private lobbies, this could be the game it was supposed to be. But today, on launch day in 2026 on a new console generation, this is a beta. And the wild part is you can't even be mad that it's free, because the time you spend frustrated in a broken game still costs you something. The Pokemon Company has the resources to do this right. They chose to ship it like this anyway. Whether that's a live service strategy, a soft launch to test servers, or just genuinely not being ready, that's a conversation worth having. Drop a comment, let me know if you downloaded it, if you're playing it, if you actually like it, because I'd love to hear from people who are actually in the matches right now. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, you know what to do. I'll see you in the next one.